I never thought this would happen to me, but last night was a complete nightmare. My dead sister called me out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere, but from her grave. She literally called me from her grave. And now I'm terrified because it's happened before. I think it was an episode of Are You Being Served? Because that was my mom's favorite show. Anyway, suddenly the phone beside my bed started to ring. When she arrived, we all sat down together and figured out what to do. Should we call the phone company and see if they could trace the call? My friend suggested I close my eyes and try and think of someone who'd passed on. So I thought of my aunt, and suddenly the laptop screen flashed on. We all screamed. I don't remember what my friend expected to happen, but she certainly wasn't prepared for this. I stayed in bed with my eyes closed, pretending that whoever was on the phone hadn't woken me up. But then I heard it again. The phone was ringing. I opened my eyes. The phone was on airplane mode and it wasn't ringing. In the center of it was a headstone. On the headstone was the name of the girl who'd visited me in my tent, along with the date of her death. I don't want to meet any more dead girls in nightgowns. Should I wait for her to contact me again? Please help. She died almost 100 years before. But then I saw something that made me scream. It was my sister's number. My sister, who died 23 years ago. Her number had been disconnected for more than 2 decades, yet the call had come through. I didn't answer, but I did send a message asking who was calling and why. The response was quick. It said, "Are you awake?" I responded, "How is this possible? How are you calling me from your grave?" Then came the message that made me want to throw my phone out of the window. It said, "I'm in the garden." I instantly panicked because my bedroom window is right above the garden. I haven't slept all night. I've spent the entire night sitting on my couch staring out the window into the dark, not daring to move or make a sound. I don't want to go outside in case she's there. I don't want to go to sleep in case she calls again. I don't want to use my phone in case she tries to contact me again. The laptop screen displayed the words, "Get out. Get out." We all freaked out. I can still remember how scared I was. We pitched our tents in the forest and lit a small fire. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but my friends were a bit freaked out. They said, "Let's get out of here." Packed up our stuff and left. We were roasting marshmallows and talking when suddenly I saw something standing beside my tent. It was a girl. She was wearing a nightgown and she looked very sad. I called out to her, "Hello." She turned and walked away. I wasn't scared at the time, but I did think it was strange. After all, who walks around a forest in a nightgown? So I grabbed the laptop and ran out of the room. I was sure whatever was on the other side of that laptop wanted me dead. That even be possible? Would it even help? Or should we just ignore it and hope it never happens again? My dad was the most level-headed out of all of us and decided we should just forget about it and hope it never happened again. So that was that. No. My room was at the end of a long corridor and the phone was beside my bed, so I couldn't see who was calling. I'd been working as a nanny in London, and it was the first year I could afford to buy my own present. So I saved up and bought myself a brand new laptop. I was so excited. I brought it with me back to London and showed my friends. One of them said, "Oh, we should have a seance." I laughed, but agreed we'd have won that weekend. I don't remember what we were trying to contact. Maybe it was my aunt. I don't remember. All I do remember is I brought my laptop to the seance, but for some reason, I got out of bed and went over to the phone and picked it up. "Hello?" There was a pause. Then a woman's voice said, "Is Susie there?" And I never used that laptop again. I gave it to my brother, and he used it for years until it broke beyond repair. I knew that voice. It was my mom's. But my mom was downstairs watching TV with me. I live in a city apartment, so there's no landline. My only phone is my mobile. I picked up the phone, and it was my aunt, my dead aunt. She was asking me why I'd come back. And then I woke up. I physically woke up. So I yelled, "Mom, someone's on the phone asking for you." Mom called out, "I'm here," and headed toward my room. As she took the phone from me, the woman asked again, "Is Susie there?" And Mom replied, "She's right here. What's wrong?" The line went silent. Then the woman hung up. That was weird. It all started when I was younger, like 5 years old younger. At the time, my family lived in a big old Victorian house. It was beautiful, but also incredibly drafty, especially in winter. Back then, if you wanted to call someone, you had to use one of these old rotary dial phones. There were about 3 or 4 in the house. She told me to go back to bed. and she called my dad into her room. They talked quietly for a while, and I heard them discussing what to do about the phone call. I don't know what they were saying specifically, but I did hear the word grave. So the next morning after, of course not sleeping at all, I asked my mom what was going on. She told me that the phone had been ringing during the night and she could get through to me. I told her I picked up the phone and everything went silent. Then the woman asked for me by name. We all looked at each other and wondered what was going on. My mom knew what she had to do. She had to call my aunt, my mom's sister. You see, my aunt had passed away 2 years prior from cancer, and when she died, she was buried in our hometown. This was before mobile phones were around, and the only way we could get in touch with my aunt was by calling her house phone. So we figured that maybe it was a friend or family member calling from her old house. But my parents weren't expecting the call to actually get through, since the phone had already been disconnected. But somehow it still worked. Also, back then, we didn't have caller ID, so you just picked up the phone and said hello. Well, one particularly cold winter night, I was tucked up in bed with my teddy, watching TV. My mom was confused. After my aunt received the call, she drove down from her home to ours. Then, 8 years later, when I was 21, I was home for Christmas. We were messing around with the laptop, using it to try and pick up any messages. After that, my friend and I never had another seance. Then last night, 13 years later, I was woken up in the middle of the night by my phone ringing. I was so scared. I'm scared because this has happened before. Years ago, I was camping with a group of friends. Then the girl came back. She stood beside my tent again and said, "You need to leave." And then she was gone. The next morning, we found a small clearing in the trees. Now, every time I go camping, I make sure I bring a hammer. So yeah, I don't want to go outside in case my sister's waiting for me. I'm scared. What do I do? Should I contact her?